Alright, so it seems that you guys like this type of lore videos. I thought we were going to delve into the Guristas pirates today. So if you just relax and enjoy the story. Founded by the charismatic, fatal, and technically minded Rabbit, the Guristas pirates are fearless, professional, and highly organized outfit operating out of their home region of Venal. Unlike other rogue factions, their activities are based not around any twisted ideology or creed, but rather a good old-fashioned lust for wealth and power. The Guristas focus primarily on interstellar piracy in the outer regions and low security space. The Guristas maintain hundreds of dead space listening posts and staging posts on the Caldari border and are known for being unafraid to stage strikes deep within the Caldari state. Typically, their business revolves around black market trading, including human trafficking, illegal weapons manufacture, and smuggling of illicit goods. In addition to this, the Guristas control a large share of the grey market within the Caldari state, smuggling unregulated products into megacorporation enclaves within state borders. Possibly the most lucrative of their operations, however, are the counterfeiting circles. Unafraid to knock off anything from designer goods to hard currency, the Guristas will bluff any market that can cut them a clean and sizable profit. Just one example is their illegal currency exchange of Caldari corporate scripts, the largest network of its type in New Eden. In less than a decade, thanks largely to a series of risky high-profile raids, the Guristas established themselves a major player in the underworld of New Eden. Founded in YC-94 by two deserters from the Caldari Navy, Jirai Fatal Laitanen and Koraku, the Rabbit Kusakami. The Guristas organization quickly gained a reputation as a haven for those exiled from Caldari State. It was not until YC-101, however, that the pair cemented the legendary status they hold up by kidnapping and ransoming the then ambassador of the Galente Federation to the Caldari state, a man by the name of Lucin Rilao. From that point onwards, the Gurista pirates were the prominent and increasingly powerful thorn in the side of the Caldari state. In YC-86, Jirai Fatal Laitanen found himself passed over for promotion, a blow felt nearly to his ego. His friend Koraku, the Rabbit Kusakami, was held responsible for a fatal crash landing. Deciding they had enough, the pair from the 37 Octopus Squadron stole a Concorde-class frigate and disappeared into the lawless void between Caldari and Galente space. In YC-94, they re-emerged with the founding of the Guristas, which means naughty people in the Caldari tongue. Their criminal organization quickly rose to fame and power within the New Eden underworld, profiling themselves as haven for Caldari exiles. They managed to grow their ranks at a steady pace. YC-101 was the year of their biggest heist to date. The pair hatched a plan to kidnap Federation Ambassador Lucin Rilao from the famous Grand Tiejon Casino in the Caldari system of Villain by taking advantage of his biggest vice, which was gambling. The two young pirates docked at the casino station in disguise before Fatal proceeded to deliberately lose a high-stake game to the ambassador, waging his ship, a Caracal-class cruiser, as a payment. Meanwhile, the Rabbit has rigged vessel's forward boarding ramp with a canister of nitrous oxide. When the ambassador and his bodyguard entered the ship to inspect his winnings, the Rabbit sealed the area and filled it with a powerful sleeping gas, incapacitating both Riello and his entire protection detail. It was only then another vessel elected to use the same docking collar an hour later and happened upon a boarding ramp filled with unconscious bodyguards that the alarm was raised. By this time, the Guristas duo were long gone with their captive, leading to manhunt that created a media sensation in the Galente Federation. With the operation a resounding success, the Federation's inability to apprehend Fatal and the Rabbit lead to an enormous ransom being paid to Guristas in undercut diamonds by the ambassador's father Daurun, the Diamond King Rilu, for his safe return. And ever since, the Guristas have maintained a reputation as one of the most ubiquitous pirate organizations in the cluster. The numbers swelling rapidly in size. Soon, after the successful ransom on Ambassador Rilo, the organization relocated from the Caldari state borderlands into the region of Venal, where they staged their operations from their heavy fortified strongholds. The Guristas are not against working with the Caldari when it suits their agenda, and no event is more notable than the story of how they obtained the access to the Raven battleship blueprint and the start of the career of Utru Garyushi as Ishukone's CEO. Most of this, however, is unknown to the general public. Utru Garushi's father, Villamo, started dealing drugs for the Guristas after he lost his job as Ishukone for stating the truth rather than what his superiors wished to hear. The loss of his wife in an industrial accident and the estrangement of his daughter meant that his hopes were built upon providing his son Otro with a better life. This hope, however, was cut short when an Ishukone executive shot Villamo after purchasing drugs from him. The Guristas, disguised by their actions and knowing of Villamo's plight, offered Otro a chance into the ranks. While Otro was further raised under the Guristas' influence, he drifted apart from them in pursuit of his quest for vengeance. This caused a notable rift between himself and the officer named Bane, who was working with the corrupt Ishukone CEO Les Akilen. Akilen provided the Guristas with information on their competitions in exchange for protection, a move that was beneficial to covering up his failure as a CEO. Otro, who managed to recover his lost sister Mila, struck up a partnership with her and his associate Gabriel, benefiting from Mila's years of corporate espionage under the guise of an escort service. Together, they targeted Rali Ukimo, the chief financial officer for Ishukone. And from him, they extracted information on the Raven, a secret project that Akilen was unaware of, which Rali was funding to ensure his position within the company. One of Mila's madams persuaded Rali to work with them through means of blackmail and by playing on his weakness. During a board meeting, Rali unveiled the Raven. It was sent to an unregulated space and attacked a Guristas fleet. Otro used this to convince Fero that he must tell Bane to halt the ongoing attack on Gabriel and Mila. Bane refused, and Fatal agreed to give up Bane in exchange to access for the Raven blueprints. Proof of Akilen's corruption was presented to the board and established Utru Garushi as the new CEO of the Ishukone, joined by his sister Mila as CFO, but she's known as Kinashi Epimeki to the public. A dark page from the Guristas' history comes from the event that took place at the Krielair research project. Fatal managed to have a Caldari research agent named Ariko spy on behalf of her parent corporation Virkumi. She was instructed to poison the Senate-enlisted Medilla, the personal aide to the two head scientists. Meanwhile, Otru Garushi, then already CEO of Ishukone, had a blueprint and equipment stolen to assist in further sabotage. When the Senate caught wind of this debate, they pulled their fundings, as did the involved megacorporations, unprotected now that the empires had put back their police forces. This opened a way for Fatal and the Gurista to arrive. Capsuleers, however, caught wind of the situation and attempted to drive back the pirate forces. The Guristas targeted the station and caused massive damage before being forced to temporarily retreat. Later on they returned and, thanks to the pass access granted by Oracle, the Rabbit was able to enter the station and capture one of the head scientists, Tarimu Umailan. Using his life as ransom, the other head scientist, Henrik Tuvol, was also kidnapped and led off the station. It was during this escape that Fatal got potted, resulting in his ousting from the Guristas and subsequent exile, as the use of a low-quality clone left him with severe memory loss and reduced motor functions. The Gurista decided to try and wash their hands clean of the failure and sell the scientist to Artico Corazor, their highest bidder. While the Federation under the president of Furitian tried to get the scientists back, they were unfortunately lost due to identity theft during a supposed return on a slave transport. They eventually expired while working within a slave colony. Despite the distance of their headquarters from Caldari borders, the Gurista have a deeply rooted history with several Kaldari mega corporations and thus keep a close eye on affairs within the state through their network and shell corporations as allies. They are rumored to have their fingers deep in the dealings of many of the Kaldari biggest corporate entities, the most notorious of them being their oft-rumored but never proven connection with the Ishukone Corporation, which was led for a decade by the former Gurista Utru Garushi, whose father Vilamo has been a long-serving member of the Guristas. During the increased Kaldari Navy mobilization of YC-115, the Guristas joined the Mordu's Legion in rescue victims of their conflict and offer them adequate aid. It is through that their humanitarian effort were in fact simply an attempt to profit from the situation and had to draw those whom now may scorn the state over their side by profiling themselves as rescuers. With the news spreading on the ghost site and Concord subsequent off-limit declaration, the Guristas as well as other pirate factions had begun to issue buy orders to capsuleers into selling their recovered covert research tools to them. This seems to hint at a pirate research race, and already there is much discussion going on about what breakthroughs this might eventually lead to. A recent Gurista raid that was halted by capsuleers' forces raised some hope in seeing some of these new advances, but the Federal Intelligence Office was adamant that there was no evidence of prototype or uncontroversial vessels. In recent times, the Guristas has stepped up the research effort, with reports of them having overtaken research sites previously belonging to other pirate factions, and adding a glut of black marketing trading to what happens to be a successful line of research into high-speed technologies. Mordu's Legion have reportedly become extremely unhappy with this turn of event, and have responded with extreme force to any sites they uncover, having even gone so far as to enlist the capsuleers in the initial effort to finding these sites. Whatever it is exactly that the Guristas have developed in these sites remains unknown, with a vast majority of the recruits initially sourced from the Kaldari state. The Guristas have found it to be their benefit to maintain many aspects of the state culture. A sense of purpose and duty is instilled in the mind of every Gurista, with those born into the fold commanding greater respect from their peers than those who come from the outside. This has become more evident as the organization has come of age and the new generation of leaders have begun to rise. As the Gurista rose to prominence in the wake of the ambassadorial kidnapping, recruits began to flood from across the cluster, and the result is that today some of the organization's most senior command staff are composed of Brudor, Intaki, and ethnic Galente. Through this creates something of a cultural melting pot inwardly. The Guristas nonetheless maintain a highly uniform, regimented, professional forward-facing image to the outside world. Maintaining a shaky truce with the Sancha nations and a standing of careful mutual respect with the Blood Raider Covenant, the Guristas suffer no shortage of trade routes and expansion opportunities. Over the years, they have continued to absorb many elements of Kaldari culture, including the state's deep and abiding love for gambling. Thousands of illegal bookmarkers are founded by Guristas, managing bets on popular Kaldari sports such as Splinters and Mind Clash. From bookmarkers to marker rigging and illegal tournaments held in the hidden establishment within Dead Space pockets, if you have the money to hazard, the Guristas will have something that strikes the gambler's fancy. In the time-honored tradition of pirates across the cluster, as a stab in the eye to the administration that forced them from their home, Kusakami shamelessly reworked the design for the Merlin-class frigate and the Moa-class cruiser, creating the Worm and the Gila, respectively. Two ships which serve as staples of the Guristas fleet. Rumors also surrounds the origin of the recently introduced Scorpion-class battleship, which entered service soon after the turn of the 1st century YC. Many Guristas still claim the Scorpion design was lifted from the Gurista Rattlesnake class. Of course, Kaldari Navy and Ishukone researchers strongly deny these rumors, claiming that the Scorpion was designed by the state, and Kusakami simply, once again, stole the design and added his own eccentric flavor. From their humble roots as a ragtag group of marauders, the Guristas have grown into an enormous organization with a heavily militaristic command structure that rivals some of the Caldari state's largest corporate police forces. At the top of the hierarchy is Kurako Kusakami, who assumes full command of all Guristas operations. Beneath him lies a network of 14 officers, including some of the Gurista pirates' most notorious faces, as of whom takes responsibility for military oversight of his own constellation in his region in Venal. Each of these officers assume command of a cell of lieutenants, who also each take responsibility for a part of his cell's operation, such as funding, defense and scouting, manufacturing and security. Authority within each cell flows downwards in a hierarchy rather similar to that of a class military structure. Beneath the lieutenants lies the meat of the organization, the frontline command structure seen daily combat by those who oppose the Guristas. More often than not, healthy rivalry will be seen between various cells within the Guristas, with individual officers competing against each other for the cut of the largest profit. Typically, this level of internal competition is highly encouraged by the Gurista leadership, and it often ends up being the root cause of many of their more outlandish and daring ventures. The Guristas have hundreds of staging posts set up alongside the Caldari border, from which they launch the raids into the Caldari territory. This allows them to operate well away from their home region of Venal and maintain a healthy presence in the lower security systems, occasionally being so bold as to establish themselves in high security. Their forces can also be spotted roaming through Declane, Tribute, Tanal, Branch, and Vale of the Silent. The Gurista often overtake existing facilities that either have gone into ruin or decay or just had insufficient protection. Example of these are the gas cloud harvesting operation in 09-4XW, or by the Laidai Corporation abandoned R55 colony ruins in the Isle systems, which surrounding toxic gas cloud provides it with a defense barrier. In recent times, the Guristas have taken to overtake secretive research facilities on other pirate empires, where they conduct a mix of black marketing trading and skunkworks research into cryptic high-speed technologies. The Guristas control a notable share of the grey market, smuggling of competing products into mega-corporate enclaves within the Caldari state. They also run one of the largest illegal currency exchange of Caldari corporate scripts. In addition to this, they also engage in other counterfeiting practices, knocking off anything that rakes in ISK. Black market trading, illegal weapons, smuggling and human trafficking are not something they shy away from when it comes to funding their activities and turning a steady profit. And lastly, the Guristas are well known for their work as mercenaries, their fearsome reputation often being enough to win a contract before it's even executed. Their ruthless method and proven track record make them a formidable player in that field, one that strikes fear into the hearts of those who happen to find themselves on the wrong side. All the Guristas vessels appear based on those of the Caldari Navy, although the Guristas themselves claims it was in fact the Caldari Navy who stole the design for their Scorpion from the Guristas Rattlesnake. Suffice to say, the Guristas equivalents of each vessel are offensively superior vessels whom fit perfectly within their aggressive tactics, are able to withstand quite a bit of punishment. First came the Gila, based on the Moa hull. Usami sacrificed speed and cargo capacity to bulk up the ship's structure. The gunnery platform was done away with in favor for missiles, supported by superior drone capacities. Sadly, this expansion led to a slightly less powerful capacitator, but thanks to using missiles, this is not noticeable during operations. The Worm was the first frigate that was converted, again changing from a turret to a missile platform with drone capacity, something which the base Merlin entirely lacks in. Again, unneeded space was done away with to beef up its survivability rate, choosing an equally strong but slower charging capacitator. Targeting range was shortened and adequately power all electronic systems within the hull. Then the Rattlesnake is again a missile and a drone platform, whereas the Caldari Scorpion often mixed weapon platform with ECM modules. Finally, the Taipan is a relatively new vessel and was based on the iconic Ibis, which many new Caldari pilots take their first flight in. While the rookie ship is often scoffed at, the Guristas once more proved themselves capable of building a fearsome ship. Without sacrifice, they were able to strengthen its structure and even find space for an additional mid-slot. While the 2-turret hard slot were given up, the Taipan can field drones and thus match the Gurista fleet doctrine. The Guristas are heavily disliked by the Kaldari, their military allies Amarr and the Amatar, and the Khanid kingdom by extension. The Gallente and Minmatar, however, maintain a neutral stance towards the Guristas. This is likely due to the fact that their territories does not form a target of the Guristas raid. There is speculation that the enemy of their enemy status may be a redeeming factor as well, though neither will ever publicly admit to this. The Chukir tribe forms the exception to this rule. The Guristas themselves holds no love for Amarr and a slight distrust for the Amatar, a stance taken on grounds of slavery. The other empires are regarded with neutrality, and illegal dealings with them are not out of the question. It's only under extreme circumstances, like the aftermath of the Cyril raids, that the Guristas will close a deal with the Amarr. The fate of the ransomed scientist acted as a further assault into the wound and is often cited as an example to why the Amarr are not to be trusted or shown any mercy. When it comes to the other pirate factions, the Guristas are liked by the nation and even more so by the Blood Raider Covenant. This is reflected mutually, although the Guristas regards the Sancha higher than the Covenant. Why this is has never been met with a public answer, and despite the mutual standings, the Guristas are not known to have ever directly cooperated in any official manner with either faction. Unlike the Angel Cartel and Serpent's business relationship, it seems to be more a matter of shared dislikes in forming an opposing pirate bloc. Concord rates the Guristas as second most hated after Sancha Nation, both part with the Blood Raiders. When asked about this, an official stated that the ratings are largely influenced by the aggressiveness and overall threat to peace that any given pirate faction form. Unsurprisingly, the Guristas are no fans of Concord either, and treat them with similar disdain. Worthy of note is that there exists a strong mutual rivalry between the Mordor's Legion and the Guristas. The stance of the Legion makes sense as it is an extension of that of Kaldari. Furthermore, they idealize the honor code, integrity, and military deals, whereas the Guristas are in the mercy business for good old greed or lust for power. The Servant Sisters of Eve, the Interbus, and the Society all carry a minor dislike for the Guristas. The Guristas are neutral towards the former, but mimic the standings of the latter. This seems to be grounded in clash of ideologies. Favored affairs may also be to blame. No real public information has ever been given nor officially requested. Finally, the Jove and the Or are neutral. None have really interacted or had any reasons for interactions. And here we will talk about some notable characters. Jirai Laitanen was born on July 3, YC65, to a father whose entire career was based around the Kaldari Navy service. Similarly, his mother's career was spent in loyalty to only a single mega corporation. She was the corporate account manager for the Kalakitua Corporation. After being raised on the new Kaldari Prime and educated at one of the most renowned boarding schools in the state, Laitanen was drafted into the Kaldari Navy immediately upon legal age. He was expected to follow his father's footsteps and commanding a vessel of his own. After 11 years of military service, he had befriended and become increasingly close to fellow deserter Urako Kusakami, and together they founded the Gurista Pirates in YC94. After a meteoric rise, the infamy and the co-founder and charismatic leader of the Guristas, his career was brought to an abrupt end during an assault on the Serial Research Laboratories in early YC106, whereupon his ship was destroyed and himself pod-killed by Capsuleer forces intent to defending the facility. Laitanen's current status is a topic rarely discussed by the Guristas at any level, and due to his absence from the public life since the Cyril raid, there has been a widespread speculation surrounding his condition. Rumors range from his immediate death due to unsuccessful neural transfer from him living in seclusion as a heavy scarred shadow of his former self. Throughout the years, it has even been suggested that Fatal has been lying mind-locked all this time in a clone reanimation unit on 6NJ8-V, the same planet that he and his partner Kurako Kusakami terraformed together at the outset of their venture. Kurako, the Rabbit Kusakami. Born into a family in service of Lai Dai on August 26 YC71, Kurako Kusakami, also known by his nickname the Rabbit, began a life on the planet of Noni-1, with a corporate education founded by his parent corporation. Most of his early engineering education came from his mother, who served as a flight technician for Lai Dai's Advanced Research and Development Program. Once of working age, Kurako was expected to assume the same role as his father, who was an MTAC maintenance engineer from Ingame 7. Despite crippling introversion and a pronounced stutter that plagued Kusakami throughout his years, it rapidly became apparent to Kusakami's teacher that he was extremely gifted, possessing an intellect that far surpassed that of many of his tutors, as well as his peers. Upon his graduation, he was immediately moved from his commercial contract with Lai Dai to a position with military research and development, and assigned to the Caldari Navy's 37 Octopus Squadron, where he immediately befriended and became increasingly close to a fellow pilot, Jirai Laitanen, in YC-94. Ever shying away from the limelight, Kusakami encouraged Laitanen to become both the visible leader and the mouthpiece of the Guristas, while he himself worked behind the scenes to further their goals to create a fleet worthy of the organization's colors. He was hit hard in early YC-106 when Fatah was taken from his side by the action of independent capsuleers during the second Gurista assault on the Serial project. Choosing to retreat from public life, Kusakami has led the Guristas from the organization's headquarters in Venal. Today, Kusakami resides on 6NJ8-V, the same world that he and Laitanen terraformed together at an enormous personal expense to create a retreat from intensity of leadership, while he still remains constant contact with even the lowest echelons of the Guristas, believing it to be good working practice to have a finger on the pulse of his organization. His many years in self-imposed confinement have left him bitter and vengeful against everyone but a few capsuleers who flies under his colors. Estemal Tharkon. Driven by a hate-filled agenda to bring down the Caldari state, Tarkon pulls no pushes and wastes no opportunities to bring mayhem to the state in any way she possibly can. Bastard child of a prominent Caldari businessman and his Intaki mistress, Estemal joined the Gurista at the age of 31 in YC-98, after spending a number of years as an independent mercenary following a failed career with the Vurkomi Peace Corps. Initially making a name for herself as a gun for hire, she was drawn into the ranks of the Gurista pirates after a run of highly successful contracts against military targets in the state, and has become a fundamental figurehead among the fleet commanders charged with defending Venal. Kaika Peunato. A naturally gifted and highly competent pilot and tactician, Kaika was forced out of the Caldari Navy at the tender age of 20 after just 2 years of service, when he revealed that he was homosexual. Disowned by his hardline patriot father, who was also serving for the Caldari Navy as a general with the Komotoro defense fleet, Kaika gravitated towards the Gurista after hearing stories of the raid across the state borders and the close companionship of the infamous leaders Fatal and the Rabbit. Since joining the Guristas several months after his defection from the Caldari Navy in YC-101, Kaika has become instrumental in expanding their influence with his ingenious battlefield tactics and can be often found on the front line of conflict. Thon N.A. Born into a life of crime on TXW-E1, Thon N.A. operated for many years as an enforcer and racketeer for the Intaki Syndicate, providing loans and collecting on bad debt owed to the Syndicate. During her years before joining the Guristas, she also specialized in offering herself for hire as an armed escort before finally giving in to sheer greed and joining what was then a young but highly profitable venture, into which she was welcomed by Fatal and Rabbit. Thon joined the Guristas when she was 37, and roughly the same time as Estemal. in YC98 and was ascended with great speed through the ranks. This comes as no surprise to her peers, giving her powerful and charismatic presence, outstanding leadership ability, and fierce, ambitious temperament. Vepas Minimala. Vepas is one of the oldest serving officers within the Gurista pirates, and his skills in combat are legendary among the ranks of both Guristas and their adversaries. Born in YC44 and having served for almost 3 decades within the Kaldari Navy, Vepas defected after he was denied the rank of Admiral during a review of his combat performance. Joining the Guristas in YC94 at age 51, shortly after their formation, he worked alongside Jirai to plan their most dangerous mission behind state lines over their first 10 years of operation, and was instrumental in the development of many of the tactics still used by the Guristas today. Now in his 70s, he is still often seen in combat due to his lust for glory, and he is regarded to this day to be one of the most formidable pirates to ever fly with the Gurista. Lukas Helmat. A former combat pilot for the Dominions, Lukas Helmat came to the Guristas in early YC-107 after a long and violent career as a combat scout for the Angel Cartel. Born in Doril II in YC-74, Lukas proved himself among the raiding squads of the Archangels from a young age before being promoted into the Dominions after half a decade of successful raids into the Republic or the Cartel. Several months after joining the Guristas, he gained notoriety when he destroyed a Marshall-class Concorde battleship in November YC-107. Akail Abraxas. Branded as a traitor with a kill on sight order, Akail Iron Wall Abraxas has been considered an enemy of the Kaldari state since he sold out his squadron to the Guristas and orchestrated an ambush in which they were all killed in September YC-108. Raised on Kaldari Prime before being shipped off to the State War Academy in Kisugu, Abraxas excelled as a frigate and interceptor combat pilot as well as a cover-up scout until his defection from the Kaldari Navy in YC-108. While the reasoning for this sudden switch of loyalty has never been revealed, many speculate that his abrasive personality and natural dislike for the authority, along with a sizable bribe from the Guristas, led him to defect and orchestrate the death of his wingman. A highly competent scout, Abraxas has since powered through the ranks, proving himself to be a knowledgeable, fast-acting, and dependable fleet commander. Ohuminen Sin. Arriving in Venal in a battered Herion-class frigate as a delusioned young defector from the Peace and Order unit, Sin was taken under the wing of Vespas on joining the Guristas at the age of 21, YC-100. With her basic flight training from Sukovesta Security Arm and training from one of the most combat-competent Guristas in service, Ohuminen Sin immediately became to shine as a solid tactician and aggressive combatant from her first day leading security patrols on the border with Declan. Now charged with the responsibility of proving a point of contact, she has been seen in recent times on the front line as a commander of the Guristas pirate Black Rice Squadron. And there was some story about the Gurista pirates, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you do, tell me that in the comments, and I see you again.